Hi, everybody. This is Craig Shacklet with You Are Comped. I am psyched to welcome Dr. David Schwartz again for our weekly conversation. How are you, Doctor?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Well, I guess two things really quick. In case anybody doesn't know, Dr. Dave teaches jujitsu. So we were just talking off camera how excited
Kids
I am.
class. Kids class jujitsu, not adults, kids.
Kids jujitsu. Well, anyway, I mean, if anybody, it's hard to see Dr. Dave because you only see him from the neck up. He's got guns that are like
Eh.
18-inch biceps. So anyway, you don't want to mess with Dr. Dave.
I got a great question though from one of the kids this week. He says, "Why are you only a purple belt?" Well, there's this thing where you have to be really good to be a brown belt or a black belt, and I'm not quite there yet. So that was kind of like, why are you only a purple belt? You're just a purple belt. I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Well, my kid's only a white belt, so
Yeah.
I'm going to make fun of him
Yeah,
when I get
I
home.
could have come back with that, but it's like, yeah, when I can start tapping out more purple belts than tap me out, maybe I'll move up. But until then, I'm very happy to be a one stripe purple belt.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So after this, I'm going to rush home to take my kid to his 4-year-old jiu-jitsu class. And
cool.
then, but yeah, after last week, we were talking about, what would be a cool topic for this week. And you brought up conventions.
Yeah.
So walk me through that, because obviously today conventions are a huge piece of Las Vegas, what brings people there, but it wasn't always like that. So maybe tell us how the convention business really got started in Vegas.
Yeah, it all goes back to 1955. So in 1955, you had about 6 new casino hotels open up in Vegas, and this was supposed to be the thing that was going to put Vegas over the top. What happened was they weren't that well run and the market wasn't that big. And within a year, they had all changed ownership. Some of them closed forever. You also had other projects that were getting going that got derailed. So really, there was this crisis. And they said, we can fill the city during the weekend. During the week, nobody comes here. And that's not going to happen when you're just catering to gamblers. So they said, let's build this convention center, which is the Las Vegas Convention Center, and let's start going after convention people. And they really do, this was really one of the things they focused on, and they spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get convention groups to Vegas.
And was that driven by maybe a mayor? Was it an entrepreneur that just knew the convention business that wanted to capitalize? Was it the casino owners that band together? Do you know who really drove that?
Yeah, it was the casino owners for sure. As the Nevada Resort Association, they're the ones who got together. It's one of the reasons why the Las Vegas Visitors and Convention Authority isn't a public group. It's not a private group. It's a public-private group with a lot of casino ownership involved and represented, because they were really the ones behind it. And it was the hotel owners versus the motel owners for a while, but then they compromised about how they were going to tax the rooms to pay for it. But pretty much the idea was, we're going to put a room tax on, and it's going to build this convention center, and we're also going to use that to promote Las Vegas.
Wow, very interesting. Okay, and then so they build the convention center. That was obviously, or actually not obviously. I'm assuming it was a pretty big expense at the time. It was a big investment.
It was, yeah. And it was funny because they looked at convention centers all over the city, and they're like, hey, maybe we can have as big of a convention market as San Bernardino, California. We can hope. We'll look at that. Maybe we can be as big as Seattle someday for conventions, maybe. So, yeah, and they started off very modestly, just trying to get, let's see if we can attract a convention with 1,000 people, which was huge back then. And you think now, NAB just left. I think that was 102,000 people. CES, of course, is even bigger. So you think now conventions are huge. They were pretty small then when they started.
God, no offense to the great city of San Bernardino, but that's pretty funny to think that there was a time when Las Vegas, like, please, if we can only get to San Bernardino level.
Yeah.
Okay, so they built the convention center. They obviously started pretty low, their aspirations, but how long did it take for them to realize, like, oh my gosh, who knew business people around the country would like to come to Las Vegas for conventions? I mean, how long did it take for it to take off?
So a couple things happened. The convention center itself opened in 1959, but even before that, the Stardust opened in 1958, and it was a huge hotel, had 800 rooms. Then they absorbed the Royal Nevada next door, and they had to fill all those rooms. So they turned the Royal Nevada's casino into the Stardust Auditorium, which they used for conventions. So Stardust was one of the earlier ones. Caesar's Palace, when it was built, we focused so much on the themes, but they were also really into conventions. And I've got the files where they are saying, hey, we got the national milk producers to come to Caesar's Palace, and this is going to be very successful. This is a great thing. So they were big into it. But the biggest one was the International, which is today the Westgate. And they really were built from the start as we are going to be a hotel with 1,500 rooms, later 3,000. But a lot of that was built on the conventions.
Wow. So it sounds like it was a pretty steady growth through, you said 1955. Westgate or the International was that late 60s?
69.
69. Yeah. And then were there any other big landmarks until, obviously we want to get to the Venetian story, but anything between then and the 70s and the Venetian?
And the reason why it grows is that it helps them build bigger casinos, because if you are only appealing to gamblers and weekend tourists, you can fill the place on the weekends easily, but during the week it's dead and you're losing money. So once they start having conventions, they can fill 1,000 rooms during the week, which means they can expand the size of the casino. So conventions are what made casinos start getting bigger, which is how you got to Wall Street, which is how you had all these other changes. So it's kind of funny because you think about the people who were running casinos back then, who might have been connected with the mob, allegedly, and they sort of priced themselves out of the business, where they figured out a way to run a casino very profitably. And when they involved the conventions, people could see how profitable it was, and that's what eventually pushed them out.
Very interesting. Okay. And so the conventions funded bigger and bigger hotels, which led to bigger casinos, all right, so the Westgate, and then how about the Mirage? Did that was that
Mirage
built at all on conventions?
Mirage also had a big convention component from day one. When Steve Wynn and DeRuyter Butler and Roger Thomas and Joel Bergman and Bobby Baldwin were looking around at casinos and comparing them. One of the things they noticed was the Hilton, as it was known then, has a great convention base. Let's incorporate that convention base. And they kind of took the Hilton's convention base, the Flamingo's slot base, and their standard rooms, Caesar's high roller suites and their rooms, and they sort of combined them all into one casino, and that was Mirage. So that was definitely a part of that.
Genius. And from a personal perspective, my very first time to Las Vegas was as a 7-year-old, 7 or 8, something like that, going to the Mirage because my dad had a convention there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was by design. They definitely wanted to reach out to people and get people to come to Vegas. The Mirage also, they were going to go after the affluent family customer. Not just Treasure Island, but Mirage too. At least that's what the press releases say and the prospectus said. Later on they kind of maybe did some revisionist history as well. It was never about kids, but it was always about expanding the market of Las Vegas.
Now, downtown has never, I don't think of downtown at all as a convention place. I think of that more as a strip. Is that accurate, or does downtown get a piece of it too?
There's smaller groups. So, Boyd Gaming, their properties have convention space. Downtown Grand does. You definitely have smaller groups down there. So you still do group travel, kind of like places off the strip too. The Tuscany is a good example. They have a convention component, but they're not going to be able to host NAB or CES or something like that. But could they host your, reunion? Sure, they could do that. So yeah, they kind of it's for casinos, you can kind of get into this at a lot of different levels. One of them is hosting the huge 100,000 person conventions. The other one is kind of at that lower level with the smaller groups.
Got it. So the downtown may compete with San Bernardino, but the strip is at a different level.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, all right, so Mirage, obviously just revolutionary at the time, combined all the different things that you said that just took the best of everything in Las Vegas, built it, and it was a smashing success. Then talk about the Venetian, because I know Sheldon came in not as a casino guy, but more as a convention guy.
Yeah, Sheldon came in with Comdex, which was the computer trade show, and he ran it for many years. And then he got the idea, well, the real money to be made isn't running the convention, it is owning the host hotel. So that's why he bought the Sands and did the Sands Expo Center to host that. Then tears down the Sands and builds the Venetian from the ground up as his sort of ideal convention hotel. And they have a huge convention base. That's a really big part of it. So Venetian from the start, even though they didn't invent the idea of the convention hotel in Vegas, is the property that was really oriented to a large degree primarily towards conventions.
That's funny. Yeah, because I have a friend that I used to work with in Tahoe, who said that the Venetian, because he worked there, was. It's funny because they make it very clear Venetian, we're a convention business first, a hotel second, and then a gaming business third. Which is pretty much inverse of what probably every other hotel on the Strip would say.
Yeah, and although you do have that other layer on top of there, which is the high end play coming over from Asia and all those planes. So you kind of have that. So you've got the high end gaming, which is kind of not going to intersect much with the convention folks. But yeah, the convention is huge. And the reason why this is so big is that people who come to conventions spend a lot more on the room and the food and beverage and entertainment than gamblers or just people who booked the room online. So the casinos really like that customer because they're very dependable. They know, hey, we're going to get this much more revenue out of them for sure. With the gamblers, it could be hit or miss. They have to invest a lot more in the gamblers to get them to come because of places like UR Comped. There's competition. We have, the comps, so they have to invest more in them, which is great for the player. But for the casino, if they say, I can take this room and I know I'm going to generate, X amount of dollars per room per day, they might decide we would rather have a convention person in there than a gambler because we have to invest a lot more in the gambler.
That's a great point. Thank you for the plug, by the way. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So how does it sounds like at this point in Vegas, there's no secret that there's a lot of money to be made in conventions. Everybody's going to be going after that business. How is that maybe impacting the convention market? Is the price of rooms and conventions going down? And then another question, kind of a follow-on question, is how is that impacting the new developments that are coming in? Do they all have massive convention space? Or
Yeah, I mean, to take that one first, yeah, most of them do. And if you look at what they plan to win, a lot of the expansion is new convention space. So that's definitely a big part of it because people still are traveling for business, and that seems to be ticking up. What was the first half of the question again?
Yeah, the first half of the question is kind of a tougher one to answer.
Yeah.
But that was more like with so many more convention square footage coming online, is Vegas feeling like they're anywhere near a saturation point where they're not going to be able to fill convention space, or is that just not a concern at this point?
I don't think so. Because if you look at room rates and occupancy are still going up. The reason why they're adding so much more space is because they don't want to get conventions that are so big, there's not enough space to handle them. So for some of them, they might say, we'd love to come. And this is why the LVCVA bought the Riviera and is converting that into more convention space, because there were some conventions that were outgrowing Las Vegas, where part of it would be at the Las Vegas Convention Center, part of it would be down at Mandalay Bay, part of it would be at Sands, and they really wanted to have more in one central place. So I think the competitors are other cities like Chicago, San Francisco, New York, and Orlando. Those are the big competitors for Las Vegas. So I don't think they're afraid of building too much convention space. The other really good thing about convention space is you can repurpose it really easily. It's basically just big rooms, and you can turn those rooms into lots of things. So you really can't have too much of it. Another thing that's interesting that's certainly affecting things is the way the consolidation has. So it used to be if you were a meetings organizer, you could shop your event around and play people off each other. Now, with all the Caesars properties operating together, all the MGM properties operating together, there's far fewer players. So it's not quite as easy to play one off against the other because Bally's and Planet Hollywood are not going to get into a bidding war over you. They're just not. So that probably makes it better for the operators, not so good for the meetings planners. They don't have quite as many bargaining chips.
Wow, that's a really good point. Yeah, because if you think M Life owns half the Strip, Caesars pretty much owns the other half, and then there's Venetian, Wynn, and then the independent. LVC, is that the one that's kind of public-private, or that is a private company?
Las Vegas Convention Center is the LVCVA owns that.
And so that's kind of a public-private partnership?
Yeah. You had Cashman Center too, but that's now closed, but they're opening up more space at the Las Vegas, the furniture place, the Market Center, I forget what it's called, the Las Vegas World Market Center.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that's stuff that's in downtown near where the outlet mall is.
Now, are there any stats that are out there? Because I think occupancy rate, like you said, it's going up for hotel rooms. I'd just be curious, like, how often is it 80%? The Las Vegas Convention Center, is it 80% occupancy? Is it 90% occupancy? I just wonder if that's like, if it's a big number or a small number, because I have no idea.
They don't release that, but they do have numbers in the absolute number of conventions, which is rising. They also track the number of people who come to conventions, but it may be difficult to track because, again, if you come for your reunion or something like that, well, yeah, that's a group sale. Is it necessarily going to get counted? Well, hopefully, but maybe not always. So I think it might be undercounted a little bit, but they definitely do try to keep track of that.
Very interesting. Well, is there anything else that we didn't touch on with regards to the convention space? Now it's transforming Vegas.
Yeah, we covered it all. I think this also helps casino players because they get a sense of where they fit in the ecosystem. And, they know, well, hey, if there's a big convention coming to town, my play might not be as valuable to the casino as it would on a time when there's not a big convention because they don't have that pressure to fill the rooms. So, I think it's just being aware. If you're a player and you're aware of how the business works a little better, I think that can help you a little bit.
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because I should know better than anybody because sometimes we do get players that are solid. They want to come in. We're about to put them at Venetian, for example, and then all of a sudden we look at the casino rates, and on a random Tuesday, Wednesday night, it's like $700 a night. And we're like, what is going on here? Somebody that any other week would be a slam dunk comp, but they've got CES, for example, is there, and pretty much every hotel room is sold out unless you're a Chinese factory owner bringing $100,000, then they'll find a room for you.
Yeah, stuff like that's going to smash everything. But this is even in non-Las Vegas hotels. More and more, they're going to use conventions to try to supplement their revenue stream. So it's just kind of good to be aware of that. And I think that will help.
Yeah, you're right, because I know I've seen commercials for WinStar, which is near Dallas, where we're based, which is right over the border in Oklahoma. They built a new convention space, and they advertise that pretty heavily. So, yeah, it's a good point. Something to be aware of.
Cool.
Well, Dr. Dave, if anybody wants to hear more of your insights in the casino business, you can tune in every Monday. But even better, if you want the full immersive experience, you got to come July 30th on
July
the
30th.
URComp meetup at Sea, 4-night cruise out of Miami. The offer is up on the URComp website. Is going to be amazing. You're going to meet Dr. Dave, me, a bunch of amazing URComp members that are all just the best group of people in the world. So if you can make it, be there. Should be a blast.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dave. I will see you next Monday.
See you then.
All right.